Viewers, welcome back to the second episode of Good Manufacturing Practices. In the first class, we were discussing about the chronological development of GMP, and we have seen that during 1970s, the implementation of GMP has taken place. In today's class, we will be more discussing about the fundamentals of GMP. We also will be discussing about the principles of GMP. So this will be our learning objectives, to learn what are the principles of GMP. So throughout all the classes, whatever regulatory aspects we are covering, it is either based upon US FDA guidelines or ICH guidelines as well as WHO guidelines. So these are the contents that we are going to discuss today about CGMP, then the importance of GMP, benefits, the 10 golden principles, the essentials of GMP, and the worldwide enforcement of GMP. So what is CGMP? The current good manufacturing practices in pharmaceutical industry can at first seem like trying to pick a handful of water. We feel like it is so easy to handle it, but it is a broad concept which is hard to hold together. The current good manufacturing practices are defined by FDA as systems to assure proper design, monitoring, and control over manufacturing processes and facilities in pharma and other FDA regulated industries such as food industry, medicinal device manufacturing industries, and cosmetic industries. Why the good manufacturing practices are preceded by current? Does the first letter of this acronym matter? Yes, of course it matters. First we will see what is this current good manufacturing practice and where you will be seeing this current good manufacturing practices. In US FDA regulation, when you are reading, you will be able to see this acronym called current good manufacturing practices. What is special about current? Just imagine you have a production facilities which was being installed 20 years back, and you have installed first hand instrument 20 years back. Do you think that those instruments and facilities will be meeting the quality requirements of the current scenario? Of course, I know in your mind you will be telling that no. Yes, that is the answer, no. So that is the importance of the acronym C. It will be reminding the manufacturers that they must employ technologies, systems which are up to date to comply with regulations. Systems and equipments used to prevent contamination, to prevent mix-ups and errors should be of current standard. So CGMP will be providing systems that will be assure proper designing, proper monitoring and control of manufacturing process and facilities. So when a company adhere to CGMP practices, their drug product will have the desired purity, it will have the desired strength, safety, quality and identity. That will be adding up the market value. That will be more strengthening the relationship between the pharma company and the consumers, that is the patients. We already discussed about the basic of the medical industry, the healthcare industry. It is the trust. So we can enhance that trust, what you call it as the, so we can more strengthen that relationship between the consumer and the producer if the producers implement the CGMP into their production facilities. Why GMP is important? We have discussed about this concept. Consumer does not have a facility to detect the quality of the drug. They cannot simply smell it and say that yes, it is of good quality. In the case of food, we may be doing it, is it? Just by seeing the physical appearance, just by smelling it, we can say it. But here, in the case of medical, in the case of a drug, is it possible? Is it possible to say the quality of a drug is good by smelling it? But there can be possibility they can give it for a lab to test, but it is a lengthy procedure. So how we can ensure that the quality is being ensured and the drug is safe? So if you implement the CGMP, we know that CGMP say that testing is required. Testing is required, not just the end product testing. The end product testing will not be assured about the quality. So according to the CGMP regulation, it assures that the quality is built into the design and the manufacturing process at each and every step. So when you implement CGMP, the GMP constitute the license to operate in pharmaceutical manufacturing, and it is the core condition now across the world. So there will be a question. What is CGMP in pharmaceutical industry? Why it is so important? What kind of regulations it is giving? So we have seen that when a company, a pharma company implement CGMP, the CGMP systems include series of control from the raw material till the end product, and the quality focused operations will be mentioned, will be guided in these regulations. So where you will be able to see when you read the CGMP guidelines, which is a lengthy document, when you read this document, you will be able to see the importance of the management system. They need to have a dedicated management system who are ready to implement the quality systems. Where we need to also mention about the quality of the raw materials, the operating procedures should be there, and during the entire process there should be a system to detect deviations. We will be working with a standard operating procedures, but we have to monitor and we have to check, is there any deviation from the set parameters, set guidelines? If any deviation, if it is happening, to do that we need to have an investigation of the deviation. Reason for deviation. For example, at the end you have checked for the product and you have seen that the API level is not as set at the initial. So you have to go back and see what is the reason for the deviation. And also a reliable testing is also required. The quality control department should be strong enough to do the reliable testing. So this way, this is why we say that CGMP is important. So when all these parameters, we told CGMP ensures all the process of manufacturing, where you can see all the process of manufacturing are being covered under the CGMP guidelines. So what are the merits of GMPs? So the CGMP, if CGMP are being followed, the organization can avoid many of the most common causes of quality failure, which threaten patient safety, which include drug contamination, deviations, or mix-up. So the two major reasons are here. One is contamination, that is cross-contamination. And the second one is mix-up. So these two are the major risk that we can normally see with reference to the medical manufacturing. There are three, as I mentioned. One is deviation. The second one is cross-contamination. And the third one is mix-up. So deviation, by now you might have understood what is deviation. Deviation is nothing but you have a set of operations, you have a written procedures. So if any deviation takes place, that is called deviation, and that deviation will end up into an improper production. And the other two risks involved are, one is cross-contamination. What is cross-contamination? Where you can see how the WHO, World Health Organization, defines cross-contamination. Contamination of starting material or intermediate product or finished product with another starting material or product during the production. This is how WHO defines about the cross-contamination. What is it? Normally, in a production facility, if the operations are not carried out in a proper manner, if they do not have a proper HVAC systems, HVAC is nothing but the heating system, the ventilation system, air conditioning system. If it is not installed properly, what will happen? There are possibilities of airborne particles. There are possibilities of microbial contamination. So that can be one kind of cross-contamination. And another kind of cross-contamination is if they do not have a proper layout. If the layout is in the form of a zigzag, where people movement are taking place in the form of a cross traffic, there is a possibility that one starting material of a production will be getting contaminated with another production facility when people move each other. So this kind of contamination, overall we will be calling it as a cross contamination. The second one, the second major risk is about the mix-up. You can see that mix-up is nothing but contamination of one product with another product. Normally how this happens? Due to the error. Of course, due to the manpower error. When human errors or inadequate processes or inadequate plant design, these are the three reasons normally which causes the mix-up. When the labeling was not done properly, during packaging, what will happen? The different types of product will be getting mixed up. Correct? No? There are possibility. If the labeling was not done, this will happen. Or it can be during packaging also. The packing will be also causing the mix-up. And even the line clearance problem may be another issue. Or it can be during the receiving, this problem will happen. So these are some of the reasons for mix-up. So what are the reasons for mix-up? One is it can occur during the labeling, or it can occur during the packing, or line clearance problem, or it can be due to improper receipting. So when you have a system like GMP, GMP will be diminishing this risk, and it will be ensuring the quality of the product, and there will be consistency in the product. So the quality and consistency will be assured when you introduce GMP into your production facility. So our major highlight of today's talk is about principles of GMP. And from the beginning onwards, I was telling you about one of the major guiding principle of GMP. That is, the quality is built into the product. And here in the GMP, we are not satisfied with the end product quality testing. So this is the main guiding principle of GMP. So what is the main guiding principle of GMP? The guiding principle of GMP is that quality is built into the product and not just tested into the finished product. So that is the guiding principle. In the next slide, first we will see which are the 10 golden principles of GMP, and in the coming slides we will try to just elaborate each of the principle. So these are the 10 golden principles of GMP. We will start with the first one. Get the facility design right from the start. So it is talking about the requirement, the first and major requirement, that is the facility design. You need to have the facility for your production facility. The instrument, the equipment, and other premises required for the production. That is the first major important thing. The second is validate the process. Validation, the one of the important aspect, validation. We will discuss about it in the coming slide. The need of written procedures, and also we need to follow that written procedures. Identify who does what. The job description, what job I am doing, that should be clearly mentioned. And you need to keep good records. That is the fifth principle of GMP, that you need to keep good records. Whatever you are doing, you need to maintain records. The sixth principle is train and develop the staff. So continuous training is required. We have seen that lots of changes are happening in the industry. Day by day, the industry and the regulations are being changing. So what we need is, we need more competent people to work in the industry. How we can make them more competent? By giving them training in the latest information. So training and development of the staff, that is very much essential. The seventh principle talk about the good hygienic practices that need to be maintained. Eighth principle is to maintain facilities and equipment. How we need to maintain it? Maintaining the equipment and facilities. Then building the quality into the process. And the last principle what we will be focusing will be about perform regular audit. The need of regular auditing. The first principle is get a facility design right from the start. So GMP facility design for manufacturing site and scientific laboratories requires very specific knowledge and experience. This means that the quality of the product should be built at each and every stage of manufacturing life cycle, instead of solely relying on quality control test at the very end of the process. So the layout of the production area, when you are making, it should be suiting the sequence of operation. So depending upon the sequence of operation that is required and the type of product that you are manufacturing, with the help of the expert, at the first beginning itself, you need to make a clear cut facility design. So when we talk about facility design, it will be the location we have to discuss. We have to discuss about the premises. We have to discuss about the equipment and other facilities, including the transportation, water availability, the air purity. All these aspects we have to consider under this principle. So the facility, when we are talking, the facility must have a written quality policy. It should have a written safety policy also in hand. So if you are following all this, and if you have a good facility design, which will be helping to remove the unnecessary traffic during the production, and through which we can avoid the mix-up. And if you have a good production facility, you can also avoid the contamination. If you have a good HVAC system, then you can, not only having a good system is not sufficient, you need to maintain it also. Then you can assure that the contamination can be avoided. Yes. Sorry. So as I mentioned, when we are talking about the facility, we have to consider these two aspects. One is about the environment and also about the equipment and other facility. The environment, when we talk, it is important to control the air, the water, because this will be influencing the quality of the product. The air quality through, so here when we talk about air, it is necessary to talk about the clean room aspect. The need of implementing clean room technology into the production facilities so that we can minimize the contamination of biological product through air or any other contamination. Then proper lighting of the facility, proper ventilation, the temperature control, the humidity control within the plant, that it does not impact the product quality is very much essential. Then also about the equipment, the designing of the equipment, locating the instruments or equipments, and their maintenance of the equipment that suit its intended use. These are all also essential when we talk about the first principle. We have to make sure that the equipment, whatever we have procured, is easy to maintain. Their installation area should be very specific, and it should be in a clean area. That it should be easy whenever we talk about the clean area, that area should be suitable for its cleaning and maintenance, and that equipment should be suiting for the intended use. That material with which the body of the equipment is made, and we talk about fermenters. For upstream processing, when you are using a fermenter and the body of the fermenter is made up of with any metal which is reactive with your broth what you are using, the medium what you are using, then it will not be matching the purpose for which you are purchased it. So such kind of, though you feel like it is very simple, very minute, but that nano level thinking is very much essential here, because the small, the micro or nano level mistake will be affecting the quality, will be affecting the safety of the product. And all these instruments need to be calibrated at a defined interval of time, and they should be clearly labeled also. All the instruments, all the facilities within your production need to be clearly labeled. So this is a brief overview about the first principle. We will go to the second principle, that is about the validation. So as per the various agencies, how they define the validation, we can see first. Validation is nothing but establishing documented evidences that provides high degree of assurance that a specific process will consistently produce a product meeting its predetermined specification and quality attributes. So what we need to do through validation is we need to establish a documented evidence for assurance that consistently using that equipment or process, we can produce products with the predetermined specification and quality attributes. So depending upon the regulatory requirement, what kind of quality requirements are required, with that specification we can produce. That kind of a data we need to generate. That is very much important. So that process we will be calling it as the validation. Validation are done at various levels. For example, you are installing your new facility. During that time you need to do the validation. It can be the validation of facilities, or it can be the validation of equipment when it is been installed newly. Also, sometimes we may make some significant changes in our facilities or in our existing systems. This also requires validation. Just one example I will tell you. You have an HPLC system with you for your purification, or you have an UV spectrophotometer in your purification, and what has been done is you have done some software changes in that. You have done a software changes in that. During this time also, what is required is we need to do the validation. And when we talk about validation, validation has three different levels of validation. Which are they? One is installation qualification. The second one is operational qualification. The third one is performance qualification. So these are the three validation processes that are involved. Whatever validation process we are doing, whether it is the IQ or OQ or PQ, what we need is we need a validation master plan. According to the validation master plan, we need to carry out all the validation process. The first one, installation qualification. It is nothing but you are newly going to install a instrument or a facility. So what you will be doing here is you will be testing to verify that the equipment is installed correctly. How you need to check it? Normally we will be having a blueprint, is it? When an instrument comes, instrument may be coming as different unit. First you have to cross check. There will be a list about the parts. We have to cross check whether you have received all the part of or all the component of your instrument or an equipment. Then based upon the layout or based upon the blueprint, the installation procedure will be done, and we will be seeing after installation whether it is working. Is it? So simple. Just like a pH meter, you are purchasing a new pH meter. So you have an electrode separately, you are a connecting cable separately, and you have the centralized instrument separately. So you are just connecting all the three. Then you will be just check whether when you are connecting to the plug point and you are putting the switch on, and you will be seeing whether it is working. That is called installation qualification. And they will be giving you a letter that successfully this particular installment is being done on such and such facility, such and such date. So normally an engineer will be doing this process, we might have seen. The second one is the operational qualification. Now installation is done. So each equipment will have a limited values or a limit range to operate. For example, temperature range you can say. 0 to 30 is the temperature range at which that instrument can work. So you have to see that whether we can operate these two ranges of temperature from 0 to 30. So that is called operational qualification. We will be verifying that the equipment operates correctly for a range of conditions. That is possible with that. You have a UV visible spectroscopy installed there. What you need to check is from the ranges. Maybe if you want to check the UV range, whether the instrument is working in the UV range, you have to check. Whether it is working in the visible range, you have to check. So maybe for example 200 to 800 nanometer you can scan your samples. You have to check it whether it is working from this particular range to the from the lower range to the higher range, whether it is working. That is called operational qualification. Now the third one, that is the performance qualification. Performance qualification is we are testing to verify that the product can be consistently be produced to the specification. There will be an operational condition. We have to see that with that operational condition, whether you are able to produce the product in the desired quality and desired amount. This is called performance consistency or performance qualification we will be doing it. So that is about the validation. So coming to the third principle, write good procedures and follow them. What we need to do is we need to write good procedures and then we need to follow them. That means we need to develop a step-by-step procedure in writing. These procedures will be acting as a roadmap for the consistency in performance. You need to have a blueprint of how the manufacturing need to be done. Which raw material, what kind of mixing need to be done, what kind of condition you need to be maintained. So all these detailed procedures are needed there. So at the beginning itself you need to develop such a step-by-step procedure which will be ensuring that the product has been made by the same procedure under the same condition each and every time. So there will be consistency, there will be quality, there will be safety. And all these procedure what you are making should be very clear, it should be conscious and logical also. You can make it in the different forms. Sometimes it may be in the form of a flow chart, or it may be in the form of a block diagram, or it can be in the form of a written procedure. So there are various ways through which you can make a good procedure. And not only just having a procedure is not sufficient. As I mentioned, if you make any deviation from the procedure, what will happen? It will end up in risk. It will end up in risk. One of the risks is change in the quality, change in the required specification. That possibility is there. And one of the major problem that we face when you go to any industry is that as we getting more and more experienced, we feel like the procedure what we are following is not sufficient. I am more experienced. I know better. I can do better than what is there from the procedure. That is not a good attitude. What we need to do is, when you feel that the procedure is not apting for the current scenario, you need to upgrade it. You need to change the step by process. And normally, a junior staff, when they are joining into any facility, not only in the production facility, anywhere, this is the thing that is going to happen. What they will be doing? They will be following the seniors, is it? Even in the classes, we used to see that. Juniors following the seniors' ideas. The very thing will be happening in industry also. But that is not a good practice as far as GMP is being considered. GMP, the following documents are very typical. There are 4 documents that are very typical. One is specification, operating instructions, operating procedures, and records. So these 4 records are very typical in GMP. Just to have is not sufficient. So as I mentioned in the previous slide itself, we can have a procedures in different forms. The process approaches can be different. Sometimes it will be in the form of a flow chart, or a block diagram, or a responsibility matrix, or a written procedure, or in the form of picture. So these are the different formats what we can follow to express the written procedures. So just to have the procedure is not sufficient. We need to ensure the compliance with the procedures. So we need to follow the procedures closely to ensure the consistency in the product quality. Never deviate from the written procedures without the approval from the supervisor or the quality department. That is a rule. That is a mantra that we have to learn. Never deviate from the written procedure. You may be really expert, but still, I say, don't deviate from the written procedures. If any suggestions for improvement are there, then discuss with the team members and implement those suggestions only after getting the approval. There are 2 reasons for why we say that we need to compliance with the procedure is, many shortcuts may create pitfalls that can be costly in the end. Each step in the procedure has been included for a specific purpose and reason. So by creating shortcut, by avoiding any one step or any one procedure, what will end up is you will be getting a product with improper specification and quality standard. So that is why the third principle is more important. The third principle is, you need to, as per the third principle, we need to have a written procedure, and we also need to assure that we are following the written procedures. So coming to the next principle, the fourth principle is about the job competency and also about to identify who does what. So there will be different type of job role in a production facilities. What we need to do is, all employees should be clearly understand what they have to do each day. If this is clear, what they have to do each day, it avoids the misunderstanding and minimize the risk and the product qualities. So when we create any job description, what are the points we have to highlight are, one is the job title. What job title you have, and what is the objectives of the job. And what are the roles and responsibilities? The job roles will be there. The job responsibilities will be there. About the job description you have to give. About the roles and responsibilities you have to give. And you also state the skills that are required. So based upon that, the competency we can improve. And there should not be no gap or overlap in the responsibilities. So normally in production facilities, especially in QA and QC department, when we say, they will have shared responsibilities and individual responsibilities also. And when it is coming to the shared responsibilities, you cannot say that you didn't do, that is why this has been ended like this. That should not be there. There should not be like you do, I do. Based upon the job role, if you have already informed about each day's what you are supposed to do, then you will be doing your job well. So that will be increasing the competency in the job. The fifth principle is about documentation. We all know that if it is not written down, then it didn't happen. This is the thumb rule. So normally a good record enables you to track the activities that is being performed during the manufacturing, or it can be during the receipt of your raw materials, or the release of your final product. So during all these stages, you need to maintain a good record. Not only that is sufficient, there are other records also we need to maintain. So when you have this good practice of keeping good record, we call it as a good documentation practices. Is it? We call it as good documentation practices. There are various GXPs that it will be coming across. One GXP is our good manufacturing practice. Similarly, good laboratory practices are there. Good hygienic practices we will be discussing in another slide. And in this slide, what we are highlighting is the need to have a good documentation. So record your all the necessary information. Immediately upon the completion of a specific task, you have done quality analysis, you have done. So immediately you need to record it. Otherwise, maybe we'll think I'll trust my memory and I'll record it later. Or you may write it in a piece of paper. And because of your busy schedule, you will forget to document it properly. During auditing, it will be a problem. As I mentioned, if you have not written down, it will be considered as it didn't happen. Is it? So each one will have a specific role and responsibility. So what we need to do is, based upon our role and responsibility, whenever you complete your task, record it. And one more thing you have to remember here, don't document someone else's works unless it is been assigned by that particular person. And just by one person has been assigned you to do one more additional task, don't go for it. You go for it only if you are trained to do and you know how to do it. So I think this will be summarizing you the importance of documentation. So remember this slogan: if it is not written down, then it didn't happen. This is how we evaluate things. This is how we evaluate things when we go for auditing. Whether it is, we will be discussing about the two types of auditing, whether it is an internal auditing or self-auditing we will be calling, or whether it is an external auditing. During this auditing time, if any kind of document is not there, we will consider that it didn't happen at all. So what are the different kinds of document that we need to retain? One is the master record, the product master record, the batch and manufacturing records, material and component control records, personnel and training records, equipment logs, their calibration details, the cleaning logs. So these are some of the essential documents that we need to maintain. And how many years we need to keep? Normally, the document need to be kept 1 year past the expiry date or 3 years past the distribution date of the product, whichever comes later. So this is how normally the general thumb rule for how long we need to keep a document. It will be ranging from 1 to 3 years, 1 year past the expiry date or 3 years past the distribution date, whichever comes later, that we need to follow. So that is about how long we need to maintain the document. So these documents like master records, manufacturing records, material and component control records, personnel and training records, the equipment logs, the calibration details, the cleaning logs, all these things we need to maintain properly. We finished discussing about the first 5 principles of GMP, which include get the facility design right from the start, that was the first one. Validate the process, second one. Written procedures and follow them, that was the third one. Identify who does what, and the last one, keep good records. It's the time for a short break. We are going for a short coffee break. Stay tuned with me for the next video, where we will be going to discuss about the remaining 5 principles of GMP.